Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman, the show where a cranky middle-aged sports writer who has seen it all, that's 100% me, takes you behind the scenes and into the stories. I am your host, Jeff Pearlman. And if you were a kid of the 1980s, especially the early 1980s, who loved sports, and in particular, loved college basketball, there were certain players who you just gravitated toward. Ralph Sampson at Virginia, Patrick Ewing at Georgetown, Mark Jackson at St. John's, Chris Mullin at St. John's. You know, there were these guys, especially being an East Coast guy, I guess, who you just were like, they captured your imagination because you didn't see them that often. Pearl Washington at Syracuse, on and on and on. Just these basketball players who grabbed you, and they just feel time-stamped forever in this period. And for me, and I think for a lot of people my age, one of those guys is a former University of San Francisco guard named Quintin Dailey. And Quintin Dailey was a kid out of Baltimore who I think most basketball experts thought one day just might be the kind of player Michael Jordan wound up being, the type of player Vince Carter wound up being, the type of player, who even knows, a Steph Curry or Kevin, a super duper star. Quintin Dailey was headed on this path, University of San Francisco. And the story of his life and what happened to him is so insanely complicated and horrific and tragic and weird and confusing and grotesque and ultimately profoundly sad. And that's what I'm going to get into today on Press Box Chronicles. So if you were a basketball fan, a college basketball fan in the early 1980s, and this is an age where you didn't see every game all the time. Like living here in California, I literally, if I want to watch Delaware play Bucknell, I can find this on TV. But back in the day, it didn't work that way. And college basketball players, the great college basketball players of the era, built up an aura and a mystique where they just felt almost godlike. Ralph Sampson at Virginia, James Worthy at North Carolina, Pearl Washington at Syracuse, Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. These weren't just really good college basketball players. They were icons. They were people, they were appointment viewing. If you knew one of their games was going to be on TV, you immediately wanted to go watch it. And one of these guys, weirdly, was a kid who played for the University of San Francisco named Quintin Dailey. And Quintin Dailey was a 6'3", 180-pound guard who had a lightning quick first step, a dead-eye jump shot with a high release point, could cross you over and send you sprawling, kind of like Tim Hardaway, just had all the skills. And Dailey was a kid out of Baltimore who suffered just one tragedy after another. When he was 13 years old, his dad died of a heart attack. 1 month later, his mother died after a nervous breakdown. He was raised by an aunt and said he never knew what love was, never knew what support was, never knew what compassion was. When his parents died, he didn't know who to trust, where to go. He said he learned everything about life from watching movies and imitating movies, in particular kung fu movies. He just didn't have any trust in him. And he's one of the most highly recruited basketball players in the country. And he's getting letters from all the top schools. And he's just this kid who's hurting, who's empty, who doesn't have anything inside of him because of loss. And he decides, what I want to do is get away from it all. And he goes 3,000 miles across the country to play for the University of San Francisco. And this is not a good basketball program. This is a mid-major program that hasn't been good in decades. And Quintin Dailey goes there, and he's immediately a star. He starts beginning his freshman year. And by the 1981-82 season, when he's a junior, Quintin Dailey is one of the absolute best players in the country. He's a guy who averages 20-something points a game. He's an assist machine. He can't be stopped. People are talking about him literally in the discussion. Maybe he'll be the number one pick if he comes out early for the 82 draft. He's that good of a player at the University of San Francisco. Well, it's December 21st, 1981. And Quintin Dailey, junior basketball star, lives in Phelan Hall, Phelan, on the campus of the University of San Francisco. And it's winter break. 2 days earlier, USF beat Iona. And Quintin Dailey scores 34 points, has 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals. He's a star. 1 day after, they beat New Orleans. Quintin Dailey, 28 points, 5 rebounds. He's a star. But on December 21st, 1981, according to a female student a 21-year-old student from Sacramento who lives in the same dorm as Quintin Dailey, fell in Hall. Quintin Dailey entered her room and raped her. And for the next bunch of days, after she actually reported this to the university, she was urged strongly by the university, by university representatives, by representatives of the basketball team, by representatives of the athletic department, do not pursue this. Whatever you do, do not pursue this. You don't want to do this. This is our star. This is our meal ticket. Do you really want to be the one who goes after one of the best basketball players in the country? Do you, female student who says you were raped, are you sure it was him? Are you really sure it was him? Because maybe it was someone else. Maybe it was this guy. Maybe it was that guy. You can't be sure it was him. And this woman was told repeatedly, don't press charges by the university. Don't do this. Well, she does. And Quintin Dailey is charged with 5 felony counts: assault with intent to commit rape, assault with intent to commit oral copulation, assault, false imprisonment and burglary, and attempt to commit rape. And on February 22nd, 2 months after the alleged incident, Quintin Dailey is arrested. The team is 23-4 at the time. They're 16th in the nation. People in San Francisco and on the campus of the University of San Francisco love Quintin Dailey. And as soon as he's arrested, he's booked, he's released on $5,000 bail. Everybody has Quintin Dailey's back. Everybody has Quintin Dailey's back. And there's a column that ran in the February 23rd, 1982 San Francisco Examiner. And I understand time passes and people make mistakes, but there was a writer there named John Crumpacker who wrote, and I want to read this all because I want you to hear what this young woman was dealing with. At USF, Quintin Dailey is thought of as a model citizen. USF coach Pete Barry describes his star as very open, friendly, warm, and generous. He forgot to mention modest. In post-game chats with members of the media, Dailey rarely, if ever, dotes on himself. Knowing Quintin the last 2 years, I can't conceive of him doing something like this, assistant coach Vince Combs said. It's totally out of character. I just don't see it. He's too great of a kid. Basketball players are popular figures at USF, and female students delight in painting inspirational banners to hang in Memorial Gym on game days. The message pad on Dailey's dorm room is dotted with notes and phone numbers written in a variety of feminine hands. As one of Dailey's teammates said, girls aren't a problem on this campus. And it's so... I wish I could say it's only time period sort of appropriate. Times have changed, but in a lot of ways they haven't. There was an effort all throughout San Francisco to demonize this woman, to insist she was wrong. In fact, in a home game, a few weeks after this happened, a banner was held up saying the woman's first name and "you wish" at a basketball game. And all this happens. University of San Francisco literally pays for the attorney. Quintin Dailey's attorney was named George Walker, and the university paid for his attorney. And when he was interviewed in the Examiner, the attorney, Walker, said, I think Quintin's a remarkable individual. It takes time for an attorney and client to get to know each other, but he's an exceptional young man. This is all totally inconsistent with the acts that he's been charged with. And again, USF is still begging this woman throughout it all, don't press charges, don't do this, back off, back off, back off. And the crazy thing is, this all was taking place right before the 1982 NBA draft, where Quintin Dailey's life was supposed to change. And despite everything that came to light, it went pretty well for him. On June 4th, 1982, Quintin Dailey pleaded guilty to one charge. And in return for pleading guilty to a non-sexual charge, all the other charges were dropped. 4 days later, with the 7th pick in the NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls selected Quintin Dailey. And it was a weird, from a basketball standpoint, it made total sense. Quintin Dailey could play. There's no doubt about it. And Fred Mitchell of the Chicago Tribune wrote, in what may someday be described as the Bulls' finest overall draft choice, Chicago came away with at least 4 quality players. They got Quintin Dailey, they got Ricky Frazier from Missouri, they got Wallace Bryant, also from San Francisco, and they got Rod Higgins at Fresno State. I wouldn't exactly call that a life-changing draft, but Quintin Dailey is drafted. And as soon as he's picked, obviously the questions arise. And Rod Thorne, very, very respected NBA figure, is a GM of the Chicago Bulls at the time. And Thorne said something that wound up in the multiple newspapers after the draft that really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. He said, I talked extensively to Quintin about a lot of people at University of San Francisco, around the league, people in Baltimore, and there's nothing negative from anybody. Despite what happened last winter, everyone thinks he's a terrific young man. I don't think he'll ever have another problem. And if I thought differently, I wouldn't have drafted him. And I'm just saying, like, it's weird, right? Like, that's weird, right? Like, this guy was literally just accused, credibly, of raping someone at the University of San Francisco. And you're like, yeah, I talked to people. I couldn't really find anything bad about him. And it's like, bro, he was just accused of raping someone at the University of San Francisco. It might not have been that hard to find someone to say something negative about him. Did you talk to the woman? Did you talk to her friends? Did you talk to the counselor she probably saw? Did you talk to her parents? Like, the lengths we go to protect athletes and to protect athletes' reputations is absolutely bonkers. And it got even worse because Quintin Dailey is drafted. He holds a press conference with the Bulls, as first-round draft picks do. And he says he pled guilty only so he could stay out of jail. He added that he felt no remorse whatsoever, and he, quote unquote, had forgotten the whole episode, right? And the Bulls, I have to think very early on, were like, maybe we should have gone with Lester Connor. Like, maybe this wasn't the best move, because from the gate, the Bulls start having games, and the Bulls suck anyway. And you have all these women coming out to your games outside the arenas, picketing and boycotting and holding up signs about this rapist and holding up signs about this asshole and saying, how dare you draft this guy? And I have to say, I really mean this. I don't understand in hindsight how in any possible way the Bulls thought it would be a wise business move to draft Quintin Dailey. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. Also, furthermore, when he was at San Francisco, Quintin Dailey started dabbling with cocaine and using it fairly frequently. And he said he never used it on the day of games, but he was using it the day before, the day after. I don't know. I feel like you do a little research, you look into your player, you might want to know that not only was he accused of rape, but he was using cocaine. But whatever. Quintin Dailey plays for the Bulls. And despite all of it, I will say Quintin Dailey was a pretty freaking good NBA player. You know, as a rookie for a really bad team that only wins 32 games, he averages 15.1 points, 3.7 assists. He's all rookie. But at the end of the season, he enters drug rehab for cocaine addiction. And he struggles to shake this. 83-84, he averages 18.2 points per game, 3.1 assists, but he's using cocaine. 84-85, 16 points per game as a six man, because a guy comes along named Michael Jordan, who's drafted out of North Carolina, and he starts, and Quintin Dailey is on the bench. And that season, 1985-86, might have been a low period, the low period for Quintin Dailey as a professional basketball player. First, people in Chicago haven't forgotten that you were accused rapist. Second of all, you're strung out on cocaine. Third of all, Michael Jordan is stealing your shine. Quintin Dailey plays 35 games that year. He averages 16 points per game. And during it, he starts missing practices, missing flights, missing buses. And there's this moment when Quintin Dailey takes himself out of a game with an injury and is on the bench in uniform, having taken himself out of the game, eating popcorn and a hot dog. And one day, the coach of the Bulls at this point is Stan Albeck. And Quintin Dailey is so strung out from coke, which he did use on the day of the game, that he thinks his coach is Kevin Lockery, his old coach, not Stan Albeck, his new coach. Literally doesn't know who his coach is. And he has this moment where he's like, I'm pretty fucked up. This is not good. And he enters rehab, and it's the beginning of sort of a weirdly redemptive story for Quintin Dailey, where it's almost weird. Here's some good insight on these shows and actually how I talk about this. On the one hand, it is very hard to ever get past someone who is accused of rape. It just is. You could, from Kobe Bryant to Tupac to a million different people I've written about through the years, or Roger Clemens allegedly having sex with a 15-year-old Minnie McCready. Like, it's really hard to get past that, right? But I also think it is important to look into someone's trauma and what they had to deal with. And I just think Quintin Dailey, the trauma in his life, his behavior, in a weird way, if sympathetic isn't the right word, there's something about who he became. And he's this coke addict in Chicago who can't see straight, who's been marginalized, who doesn't have many friends on the team. And he finally checks himself into rehab. And he's as low as he's ever been. And he's wearing all this on him. And the Bulls wind up releasing him. And Quintin Dailey gains a shitload of weight. This is 1986. He's still using drugs. He's in and out of rehab. He doesn't know what his life has become. He doesn't know who he is. Where he's actually sympathetic. For all he did, there's actually something sympathetic about Quintin Dailey. And weirdly, the Los Angeles Clippers kind of saved him. So Quintin Dailey definitely bottomed out with the Chicago Bulls. And he was released. He was in rehab. He wound up playing a little bit with a Jacksonville team in the Continental Basketball Association. And then in 1986, the lowly Los Angeles Clippers signed Quintin Dailey. And this was the era where the Clippers couldn't do anything right. And their team sucked. And nobody cared. And they played in the shadow of the Lakers in the old LA Sports Arena. And they were just a joke. Donald Sterling was the owner. They shuffled through coaches. They shuffled through players. Nothing was good about it. But for Quintin Dailey, weirdly, the Clippers was a perfect opportunity to just be a guy. Like, I think a lot of people misunderstand. For a lot of star athletes, being a star athlete, literally being a star, is not a way enjoyed. You just want to blend in. You just want to enjoy your career. You just want to be a guy. And Quintin Dailey, I think, learned very quickly, I just want to be a guy. I don't want this pressure. And he played with the Clippers from 86 to 89, and he averaged 11 points per game. And he was kind of a fuck up. Like, he would miss flights and he would miss buses, but people generally liked him. And he also started getting kind of fat. Like, he wasn't the same player anymore. The team had nothing going on. He learned in rehab, he started eating a shitload of like Reese's peanut butter cups and Twizzlers. And he started looking a little more like a free safety, but a kind of chunky free safety than a guard. And after in 1989, the Lakers signed him as a free agent and actually invited him to camp. And he missed his flight. And he showed up for camp. And his first workout with the Lakers, he vomited all over the place. And they cut him quickly shortly thereafter, realizing he wasn't in shape and couldn't help. He had a cup of coffee with Seattle briefly, and then he was done. And that was it for Quintin Dailey. He was kind of done. His career was over, and he was kind of forgotten about. And in a beautiful sort of thing, in 1996, he was hired by the Clark County Parks and Recreation Department in Nevada. And he became a recreational cultural program supervisor. He worked on gang intervention. He worked on special events. He refereed basketball games from 2000 to 2010. I'm sure most of these kids had no idea who this guy was. And on November 8th, 2010, living in Las Vegas, age 49, Quintin Dailey died in his sleep. And he had a cardiovascular disease that had been undiagnosed. And in a way, what I kind of dig is he died quietly. There were a couple of obituaries for Quintin Dailey. There was a mention or two here and there about the University of San Francisco, which actually ended its basketball program for a while after all of that happened. There were some mentions of his time in Chicago. Maybe that he was replaced by Michael Jordan. Maybe that he was a once upon a time something that never became the once upon a time something. But mostly, at the end of his life, Quintin Dailey, 49, a father of two, was just a guy living in Las Vegas, Nevada, just a guy running rec programs, just a guy living his life. And I think for a lot of times, for a lot of athletes, whether they become multimillionaires or has-beens, there's a genuine joy in leaving your past behind and just being a guy. And I think for Quintin Dailey, dying at age 49 as sort of an anonymous guy was in a weird way as probably as good a death as he could have experienced. That is a wrap for this episode of Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Please leave a comment below on what stories you'd like to hear more about. If there's a particular sports figure you'd be interested in, do me a favor, make sure you like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok at Jeff Pearlman Author and on Bluesky at Jeff Pearlman. My latest book, Only God Can Judge Me, The Many Lives of Tupac Shakur, is available everywhere. Thank you so much for diving behind the scenes and digging into the stories. We will see you next time on Press Box Chronicles.